Hey everyone, welcome to CPM 2. We're going to go through your Module 1 review. So it starts off with a couple vocab and definitions. So on here we only have 9 vocabulary. In your vocab you have more than that. And so you want to study all of it, not just the one that's on here. But the first one says a number's distance from 0 on the number line is the number's, it's going to be absolute value. And 3 to the 6 equals 729. The 3 is called your base. And 6 is going to be called your exponent. The sign right here means, if you kind of use that as an arrow, it's pointing to the left. The left is all of your less numbers. So this means less than. Think of it as pointing to all of those negative numbers. And you can kind of, it's hard for me to do here, but if you kind of like turn your page, this almost makes like an L right there. And so that's another way to kind of help you memorize that. And so then this one here is pointing to all of those positive numbers. So this means greater than. The product of two positive numbers is positive. Okay, positive will always be positive. So, for example, and let's do our examples in blue. For example, what's some good numbers? 3 times 4 is 12. The product of two negative numbers is also positive. So, for example, -3 times -4 is also 12. If you want to maybe star this one, a lot of people get this one wrong. It would make sense that two negatives is negative, but when you are multiplying, which is what the product means, product just means multiply. When you are multiplying, if those signs are the same, they are positive, whether it's two positives and two negatives. Number 6, the product now of a positive and negative, when those signs are different, that is when it is negative. Okay, so for example, I'm going to do this on the line, but so for example, if you have 3 times -4, that is a -12. Now, some people will say that's negative because the bigger sign is negative. That's with adding and subtracting. Because even if we switch the signs and do -3 times 4, this is still -12, even though my bigger number is positive. If the signs are the same, right here, your answer is positive. But if your answers are different, no matter which number is bigger, it is negative. Number 7, the sum of two negative numbers is negative. A lot of people want to use this one and this one in the same way because they both have to do with two negative numbers. When I am multiplying two negatives, it is positive. But when I am adding two negatives, then it is negative. And guys, I'm sorry, there's not an easy way to learn this, to memorize it. You just simply have to. So, for example, if we do -3 plus a -4, that gives me -7. With adding and subtracting, if you have the same sign, we are adding and keeping the sign. The sum of two positive numbers is positive, right? And that's what I said on that back page. Positive is always positive. So 3 plus 4 is 7. And the product of a number and 0 is 0. 0 times anything is always 0. All right, that's our vocab. So let's get into our skill and drill. It says, according to the order of operations, which operation should be performed in the following set of operations? We are going to start right here with parentheses. While using exponential notation. So I've got two different bases. I need a base of 7 and I need a base of 4. So we have 7 times, and since I only have one 7, that's all we need. If you want to do 7 to the first, since there's one 7, that's fine too. Okay, but we don't need that. And then my next base is 4, and how many 4s do I have? I have 2. Evaluate. When you see something that says evaluate, you need to get to a single number answer. So to evaluate this, I do need to expand this out. So this is 3 times, I have a base of 2, and then how many 2's do I have? 3. So times 2, times 2, times 2. Now, a lot of people will stop right here, but I'm not to a single number answer yet. So keep multiplying. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down everything else. Some people will stop here. Do I have a single number answer? No. Keep going. So 6 times 2 is 12. Some people stop here. Are we to a single number answer? No. So keep going. 12 times 2 is 24. Am I to a single number answer now? Yes, I am. (13) and 14 tell me to simplify. You're going to simplify by using your order of operations. So that is parentheses first, exponents, and usually we're good on those two, but then you have to multiply and divide. Now, this does not mean always multiply first and then divide, right? These two here are equal to each other. So whichever one comes first when you go left to right. Then you are going to add and subtract, but just like multiply and divide, that does not mean you're always going to add first and then subtract. These two here are equal, so whichever one comes first from left to right. So looking at 13, this problem here, I have no parentheses, so I can skip that step. I have no exponents, so I can skip that step. I do have some multiplication and division, and so this is where you'll get hung up, that if you think you have to multiply first, you'll start here. But the first thing that comes up is division, not multiplication, so we have to start right here. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. Bring down everything else we haven't used. Now I need to multiply. So we get 16. And 16 plus 2 gives me 18. (14), I'm using the same order of operations. When you do this, though, you need to simplify the top completely, simplify the bottom completely, and then we're going to divide very last. So here on the top, 18 plus 6 is 24 over 3 squared, that means, or sorry, 2 cubed, have that backwards, 2 cubed, so we've got 2 times 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So I've got 8 minus 2 squared, that's 2 times 2, that's going to give me 4. I still can't divide yet because I have not simplified the bottom. So I'm going to keep that 24 over 8 minus 4 is 4, and now I can divide. So 24 divided by 4 is 6. Simplify if the problem is undefined, write undefined. So these still use your order of operations. So we've got please, excuse, my dear Aunt Sally. We're adding, let me kind of scoot this over. We're multiplying and dividing are even, and adding and subtracting are even. So when I simplify, the first thing that comes up that we need to do is division. But when I look here, 5 divided by 0, this right here is undefined. So I can stop right here. I don't even care about that plus 9. You cannot divide by 0. Cannot divide by 0. So my answer is just simply undefined, we're done. On B, use your order of operations. We already have a simplified 6 at the bottom, but we need to simplify this top one to a single number answer. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply. So 4 times 3 is 12, so we got 12 minus 12. Can't divide yet. 12 minus 12 is 0. This one is okay. It is okay to have 0 on the top. When you have 0 on the top, this simply equals 0. Okay, and just like your integer rules, there's not an easy way or a trick to memorize this. You just have to. 0 on the top is okay. It is not okay on the bottom. Evaluate the expression for x equals 3, z equals 4. So I've got 4 times, I'm going to plug in my x here, times my z here, minus 3 times x. So plug in your information. X equals 3. So in place of this x and this x, I'm putting in a 3. Z is 4, so in place of this z, I am putting 4. So now evaluate. 4 times 3 is 12. I'm going to bring down my times 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 12 times 4 is 48, and if you haven't memorized your multiples of 12, we can multiply it over here out to the side. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 4 is 4. Minus 9. And so now we're doing 48 minus 9. You can't do 8 minus 9, so it means I need to borrow from my 4 to make it a 3 and make that 8 and 18. So 18 minus 9 is 9, and 3 minus nothing is 3. So my final answer here is 39. Insert your less than or greater than between the pairs of integers to make a true statement. So I always think of these as little Pac-Mans. Okay, and you want these Pac-Mans to eat the bigger number. They're hungry. So which one's a bigger number, 0 or negative 10? 0 is, so your little symbol needs to eat it. B, which one's bigger, negative 1 or 5? That would be 5, so your Pac-Man needs to eat the 5. Now these two examples are honestly pretty easy, right? Because you know 0 or a positive is bigger than a negative. So what if they had something like negative 2 and negative 5? A lot of times people are going to eat that negative 5 because in our mind 5 is bigger than 2, but we're dealing with negatives this time. So if you think of that number line, you've got 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 5. That 5 is more to the left. That's your smaller numbers. Your 2 is more to the right. That's your bigger numbers. So we're eating that negative 2. Okay? Think in terms of money. Would you rather owe somebody $2 or owe somebody $15, right? So when it comes to negatives, it almost looks the opposite, but it's not. 18, simplify. So these little lines right here mean absolute value. Absolute value is your distance from 0, which is always, always, always positive. So the absolute value of 15 is 15. Okay, it's not opposite, it's not negative 15. It's always what's ever in those bars, positive. On here, the absolute value, the opposite of the absolute value of negative 12, right? You've got the negative absolute value of negative 12. So if that negative wasn't there, the absolute value of negative 12 is 12. But then that negative from the outside needs to come down. So this is negative 12. Okay, if that negative wasn't there, it would just be 12. The absolute value of negative 12 is 12. Because that negative is there, my final answer is negative. 19 and 20. We are adding and then subtracting, but we have the same rules. If you have the same sign, you add and keep. If we have different signs, we are subtracting and keeping the sign of the bigger number. Same signs, add and keep. Different signs, subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So on 19, we have negative 8 and negative 7. Same sign, so add them together. 8 plus 7 is 15, and we're going to keep the sign, which is negative. B, 7 plus negative 8. Now you have different signs. If you don't see a sign in front of that 7, it's positive. Your 8 is negative. So because you have different signs, we're subtracting. So 8 minus 7, well, we subtract the bigger number than the smaller number. 8 minus 7 is 1. And then you're keeping the sign of the bigger number. That bigger number is negative. So my final answer is negative. 20 says subtract. Same rules though. Now, before we do subtract, we do need to clean this up. These two negatives here make a positive. So this does change into 17 plus 15. That double negative turns into a plus. So now use your same rules, same sign or different signs. Different. You've got a negative and a positive, so subtract. 17 minus 15 is 2. Keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is 17. And he is negative, and so is my answer. B, you have 2 minus 18. So positive 2 and a negative 18. Different signs, so subtract. 18 minus 2 is 16. Keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is 18 and it's negative, so my answer is as well. Last page. Multiply. When you multiply, same signs is always positive. Different signs is always negative. So here, multiply. 6 times 5 is 30. And because you have the same signs, negative and negative, it stays as a positive 30. B, 8 times 3 is 24. It has nothing to do with that 8 is a bigger number. Because they are different signs, it makes this answer negative. Same rules apply for division. We have some application. Which lake shown has the highest elevation? So we're looking at this graph here. You can either see which one is higher or which one has a higher number. Either way, Lake A. And that's it. And then lastly, 23, what is the perimeter and what is the area? So perimeter, you have to add up all of the sides. So we have 11 plus 5 plus this side down here is also 11 meters. And this side is also 5 meters. Okay, so add them all together. So 11 plus 5 is 16. You got 16 over here too. Oh well. And then 16 plus 16 gives me 32. So put your units on there. We have 32 meters. So then area is length times width. My length is 11. Think length is your longer side. Times width, which is 5. 11 times 5 is 55. And don't forget your units. And don't forget the correct units. So here it's not just meters, but it is meters squared. Area is always squared. If it's not area, then it's not squared. All right, that's all I got for your review. As always, rewind this video and watch it as many times as you need to, and you can send me an email or message me on Remind.